Midway through this trip, Cecil catches wind of the sighting of a giant sable antelope on the border between Angola and Namibia. This is an extremely rare animal that no one, in fact, has ever photographed at that time. So despite the dangers, Cecil is bound and determined to reroute his trip and find this animal. In this scene, he has rented a canoe from a native on the Kavango River and is bound to paddle with Patrick across the river. Walker was flabbergasted when he heard that Cecil had bought a canoe and intended to paddle it across the river with Patrick. It wasn't just that they might be arrested, but that they might tip over and drown. The canoe appeared to have been carved out of a tree. It was at least 18 feet long with low sides and boards for seats. The two paddles were crude affairs, long and thin with spoon-shaped blades. "Have either of you ever paddled a canoe before?" Walker said. Patrick shook his head no. Cecil offered that he'd gone punting on the River Cam in Cambridge. Walker explained that this was not the same thing. Canoes could be very tippy for the inexperienced, and big rivers like the Kavango had a deceptively strong current. "You should at least try it out first," he said. In the fading light, the three of them carried the canoe down to the shore and set it in the water. Cecil climbed in the back seat, Patrick in the front. They started to paddle and immediately began tipping from side to side. Walker waded out to steady the boat. "Don't paddle," he said. "Take a minute to find your balance." Cecil and Patrick sat with their paddles across the gunwales. "Okay, try it now." The men headed out into the river. Cecil kept switching sides to try and keep the canoe running straight, but it veered in the current and drifted downstream. There was no way they would make it across the river. "Come on back," Walker said. Cecil stepped out of the boat looking uneasy. "We'll try it again in the morning," he said. That evening, the boys made a fire atop the bluff. They sat in a circle, saying little. Walker picked up his book, then tossed it aside. Thoreau would not be his savior. Nature was not the answer. He glanced at Cecil, downcast face reflected in the firelight. Walker had forgiven the man his errant kiss. Cecil had his faults, but he was not a predator. He'd shown the boys a magnificent time and instilled in them a love for travel, for adventure. Not just this group, but a dozen groups before. Would Cecil consider it all a waste if he could not at least catch a glimpse of the giant sable? "Cecil," Walker said, "how about I paddle you across the river?" Cecil looked up. "Really? What about your hands?" "They're not too bad, I can manage." "Oh, that would be marvelous." Now Patrick was enlightened. "I will come too," he said. "You may need someone who speaks Silesi. I will paddle in front." Walker nodded. "That's a good idea." Cecil could sit in the middle with his camera. If we see the sable from the river, he could film it. Schwartzy looked concerned. "Are you sure about this, Walker? It's not like you to take a big risk. Your dad would be totally opposed." "Yes, I'm sure." But that night, Walker couldn't sleep. He played out different scenarios for the following day. They could be stopped by the South African Defense Force and thrown in jail. They could tip over in mid-river and be eaten by crocodiles. What a horrible way to die. Cecil woke him in the pre-dawn darkness. "Time to get up," he said. While the others slept, he, Cecil, and Patrick made their way down to the river. Walker held the canoe while Cecil settled into the middle and Patrick in the bow. Walker pushed the boat into knee-deep water, then climbed aboard. "All right, let's go," he said. He started with delicate strokes, not wanting to risk an upset. The river was black, indistinguishable from shore and sky. He felt suspended in space, unmoored from the known world. Water dripped from the paddle as he swung it forward, a sound like beads sliding down a stream. "You're doing marvelously," Cecil whispered. A loud splash ripped the silence. Walker jerked upright, stared in that direction of the sound. "What was that?" he said.
Waterbound and I can't get back. It's all gone and it won't come back. Don't believe me, count my tracks. Rivers is long and the river's wide. Meet your boys on the other side.